Hi, Muchismo Eugene. Welcome to another video from Exit Strategy. Please like, subscribe, share the video if you found it helpful. Give it a thumbs up. Pass it on if you believe someone else would benefit from it. I would appreciate that. Well, if you're in a position as an empath awakened and you don't really see any thing to be excited about anymore, you don't see any fun in anything as far as the eye can see, as far as societal norms goes. You've retreated into your isolation in a way that would have you think that you're being selfish, but you're not. Because this is why you're not being selfish. You don't feel depressed, you don't feel lazy, and you don't feel broken. What you feel is an inner self saying something to you, and you're trying to listen, even though you haven't figured it out or you don't wholeheartedly understand what this inner voice is telling you. Now, spiritually speaking, that's the Holy Spirit that's speaking to you. But psychologically speaking, and for the sake of practical illustrations, we're going to talk about this as this is the inner self crying out to be revisited in many ways. I'm just paraphrasing this to give you some kind of clarity on what I'm saying. Your isolation is you going within. Your conscious self is trying to take the forefront as opposed to your unconscious self, or your unconscious self, I'm saying, is trying to take the forefront when your conscious self was always running the show. Now, this is when you're beginning to start panicking and feeling like there's something you're doing wrong, but as everything is right. You're getting more and more clarity because you're spending this time by yourself, with yourself. You're doing some introspecting, and because you're introspecting, your unconscious self is now having a talk with you in so many ways. So what you're going to do, this is called a collapse of the persona. And the persona is pretty much what you grew up around, is your social structure, your upbringing, and your family structure. These are the things that have dictated and determined how you've lived up until this point. But obviously, you and I know that these social norms are vastly hypocritical. They're vastly contradictive, would probably be the better word. And so you find your conversations, you will sense them feeling repetitive when you talk to other people. Your achievements are feeling hollow, like you're doing a lot of nothing because there's no real fulfillment in it. And you're actually even your pleasure, and not so much sexual pleasure, but the things you normally would find pleasure in, they feel distant, diluted, and mechanical. It feels like the same old, same old. And so the unconscious self is actually trying to conversate with your inner self, and it's trying to reorientate who you're supposed to be as opposed to who you've portrayed yourself to be throughout your life. And again, your social structures and your upbringing had everything to do with you pretty much being programmed this way. That's why when we talk about the matrix, that's exactly what it is, because you and I have lived in a structure of sorts that has conditioned us to think, act, and behave a certain way. But when we ran into the narcissist, we began to be shook. The narcissist literally came and just shook us and shook us and shook us. And they shook that trauma out of us that we were in so much all of our life. Because when we meet the narcissist, we are pretty much empathically trying to be a help or healer. When the narcissist meets us, they are they're in search of recognition. They are egocentric centered. So that being the case, they are seeking to harm us. We're seeking to heal them because they, to us, are familiar because the traumas we've lived throughout our life, that's something that we connect with the narcissist on subconsciously. This is a subconscious thing. And we don't know that that's what we are attracted to. We don't realize it, but that's exactly what we're attracted to. And uh, by the same token, the narcissist is attracted to us because it's that light, it's that mama, it's that person that will let them get away with anything and everything. That's that person who will forgive and look over and help them and pretty much keep grooming them the way that they were groomed when they were a child. And I know this sounds weird to be able to just speak this in this context, but this is exactly what's happening. So what they do, they come along and they try to essentially get to a point where they want us to look up to them, but they're actually looking up to you. You're their savior because you're their healer. But the difference is there is no healing that can be done on them. The healing in which you've given off to them, they detest you for at the end of the day. And because they detest you, they put the foot on the gas pedal and they intensify your traumas by their abuse that you've had to pretty much turn the other cheek and stomach it and just bear it and grin it and put the Band-Aid on as you did growing up. Because as an empath, you learn to cope with a lot of things that you saw and experienced in life. And it conditioned you to be who you are today, resilient, tenacious. And so when you finally get to a point where you've been abused and you awakened, there are stages that you will come to, just like what I'm speaking of. You will find no joy, no pleasure in some of the things you did before in your isolation. This normally happens. I mean, you desire somewhat to do these things that you've done before, but what's happening is that collapse of that persona is not allowing you to fully, wholeheartedly enjoy it like you thought you did before. Because now you're faced with a reality of authenticity, unlike you've ever known before. You are authentic, but you've been met with a narcissist, someone who has educated you through and through of deception that uh, lurks in this world. And so now, because of what the narcissist uh, revealed to you based on their abuse, and now you knew everything that they did and everything about them was an illusion. Now they've educated you in that point, but they've also superimposed this education to go beyond them into every aspect of life. You're thinking along the lines of this person, that person. It's like systematically you're revisiting and you're reviewing each and every interaction, past, present, and future. And so in reviewing this, you're not responding the way you did before. And this is causing you to isolate yourself from these conversations that you see are just round and round and round. Uh, where I stop, nobody knows. And so you begin to, the persona begins to collapse. And so now the ego gonna kick in, is gonna try to, just like that intuition thing, we're gonna try to talk ourselves out of what our intuition tells us. Essentially, the ego is gonna kick in simply because the ego feels like it has to protect, it has to not, it pretty much, the ego that is trying to contend with this collapse of the persona, they're in a tug of war of sorts, and it causes us to panic inside ourselves, and it causes us a lot of time to try to compensate for this funny feeling that we don't understand yet. And that is the least you want to do, is to let the ego uh, win in this. It's going to be uncomfortable, but you have to go through it, because what's happening, you're getting a download bit by bit, not all at once. You're beginning to have those scales fall off your eyes, to where you're going to begin to see um, the thing that is happening to you vividly, progressively, because now you understand the reorientation of yourself is having to, I won't say have to relearn everything you thought you knew most of your life. You're going to have to assess your life from this point going forward. And you're going to have to, um, well, you don't have to, but it is very much encouraged that you don't fight against this. Don't allow that ego to run the show. And because of this collapse of the persona is very necessary, is crucial, fundamentally crucial to the enlightenment that I believe the Creator is trying to show you. And psychologists say this in different terms, but this is essentially what God is doing. He is visiting you. He's rewarding you for responding in the way that you responded. And he's going to reward you with that peace that surpasses all understanding. This is biblically speaking from my point of view. But back to practically psychologically speaking, these are terms and words that psychologists of the past have used, and this one particular one is talking about this. And it's titled When You No Longer Find Joy and Happiness in Anything. And this is by Carl Jung, Jung. I think I said Young before, Yung, but it's Jung, Carl Jung. And so I listened to a lot of his stuff. And for you who are not ready to grasp a lot of this teaching from him, you may not be interested in it at first. You may not be interested in it at all. But I would encourage you. It's things like this that I'm listening to now. I don't believe 5-6 years ago that it would be even on my radar. There's a time and a season for all of us that are going to be susceptible and open-minded to certain things. There are certain things that I'm not really as open-minded about, particularly speaking, just depends on what it is in the world. Say, certain political mumbo jumbo. And because I am, I won't say I'm a conspiracist, but I don't believe most of nothing that I hear on TV. I don't believe a lot of the people who claim to practice spiritual principles verbally, if that makes any sense. So I'm a free thinker. I'm a critical thinker. I always have been, and even more now so, because when God awakened me from this abuse of a narcissist, something I had not known ever in my life that even existed. And people can talk spiritual principles and say Satan, this and that and that spirit. Yes, it is a spirit from Satan. It's demonic. It's satanic. But a lot of people in the church right now are praising God and doing what thus said the Lord. But they're so naive to the point they're sitting amongst demons in the church. True, authentic believers are sitting next to demons and they can't even recognize it, because they're in this euphoric, holy mindset, whereas they're so holy in their mind to they're not allowing God's holy spiritual spirit to intercede and drive the car. They're seeing things with their eyes, and because it looks like a good show, they're allowing their intuition to talk. They're talking themselves out of what their intuition, which is nothing more than the Spirit of God. That intuition hasn't been given by Satan. Satan won't tell you don't go down that road because you'll fall off the cliff. That road ends right there. He's like Wile E. Coyote. He would rather you just run off the cliff because he's doomed. He wants to be able to take everybody down with him. And this is spiritually speaking. You know, when I say he, she, it, Satan, this is a spirit. And so back to what I'm saying is when you begin to isolate yourself and not find any meaning and joy in some of these things that I just pointed out, like, going out, in your achievements and your conversations, you're going to feel from the outside like you're burnt out. But you really got to ride this wave because you're realizing in this psychological persona collapse that you have been wearing a psychological mask that we all have developed to function in the social, in society, to be recognized and validated. And so now you don't have to contend with that anymore. Once that ego is put to death, you're going to start looking for self-validation. You're not looking to be recognized by people or anything outside of yourself. You just want to be able to be content with the man or woman within. And you will be, because you'll see these things outside of yourself are so superficial. And to the fact of the matter is, the conversations you hear, they will be detestable, not in an egotistical, judgmental way. They're just going to be something that doesn't register or resonate with where you're at, because you're doing the inner work. The inner work is focused on self. It's not focused on trying to measure up and to belong and to get along, to go along. So once you out argue or debate, which is no debate, that ego, and it becomes an ego death, it's going to be very, very intense. But as it intensifies, or as intense as it is, I should say, there is going to be something that you're going to recognize that is happening for your good. It's going to be something that you're going to begin to understand that is needed and is necessary for this self introspection. And this is what I talked about in a video called individuation. Individuation, psychologically speaking, Carl Jung talked about, because this is when the self is focused more so on the truth within rather than the truth or the falsehood outside of you. Really, whatever outside of you has nothing really to do with the truth that's within you. And that truth meaning who you really are, where you really are, how you really feel, notwithstanding other people's opinion. So in isolation, you learn to be at one with self. And on a spiritual principle, I would encourage you, the Word of God is a great source to connect that's inner peace. Because God says, I will give you the peace that surpasses all understanding. So once you get past the academia of this stuff, which you're learning and you're becoming more at one and at peace with yourself, go one better. Ask God to guide you and continue to show you these things and continue to help you become wise and insightful and be able to recognize self in order to be able to understand the things outside of yourself. Because I read something once that said to know thyself is to know another, or to know thyself is to know another. To some degree, it went that way. And so when you inherited all of this stuff from your family and the social, environment of how you should do things. And then they even gave you explanations on why you should do it. If they gave you an explanation, it was something they told you and you went along, even though it was something that you just could not wrap your head around. You didn't wholeheartedly understand it when they told you what they told you. But that doubt, you had to keep it to yourself. Didn't make sense, but you did it. You went along with it. And so this will happen in the church too. When the church, um, the sadistic satanic church in the cult like orientations is what I'm talking about. When they essentially sense or feel that you are waking up from narcissistic abuse, which happens vehemently within the church, the fold. And you go to, that's why they have it like a well-oiled machine. Now, in the protocol in how churches are doing counseling and interceding and different things, it is seemingly on the surface noble and noteworthy. If it was authentic, if it was ethical, if it was spiritually led. Okay, I want that to be clear. But because there's so much ego, there's so much narcissistic personality disorder and satanic control and manipulation within the churches, this is how they keep tabs on you. And when they sense certain empaths in that church awakening or questioning and having, even if you go to them and say, you know, I had a dream or different things like that, if it's something that God is trying to show you, there's a fair chance that that narcissist parishioner who you have divulged that to will lead you to the pastor or specific counselor to counsel you away from thinking that way or feeling that way or entertaining that thought. They will encourage you systematically to abandon that dream. And they will go on to translate that for you. When in fact, it's God very well possibly trying to awaken you or was trying to awaken you. I don't know if any of you had these type of epiphanies or these thought processes prior to the narcissist finally abusing you to the point where you woke up. And a lot of you all were abused by the church. And this is where the awakening happened. The very ones you came to for solace and counseling, they were the ones that put their foot on that gas pedal, tried to drive you off a cliff. But God had it different. He had something better in mind. So back to what I'm saying is they will try to throw you off the scent. And a lot of times they did. Looking back, you were like, man, God was showing me something. I went to the pastor and he told me, no, read this scripture. They want to get you to abandon that thought because that narcissist leader, in a lot of cases, they know that you're trying to wake up or God is trying to wake you up. And so what they do, they lead you astray so you can go right back to sleep. Comply, go along to get along. This is satanic. This is as demonic as it gets. When you have something seemingly noble and just and holy, and you get humans who go in and they learn to manipulate it for sordid gain. We're living in a Pharisee Sadducee society all over again. Because you got to understand, the Christ was crucified. So you got to understand, when he was crucified, they continued to do business like they were. Wasn't no new changes. Those few believers, as the Bible speaks, they went on and they were disbanded. It's coming a time when you as a believer, you're going to have to worship God in spirit and truth. You're not going to be, not that you're afraid to divulge to people who you work for and who you obey and who you answer to, which is God. You're going to have to keep this stuff pretty much close to the cuff. You translate what that means, guys. A lot of us believers were manipulated and taken advantage of because we had the goods. We truly had our mind on God. But the manipulators saw an opportunity. Crash dummy, sucker. But you know what? The believers that I know, mess around and find out. Something interesting I heard on TV the other day, drawing words from that. President, of course, I don't watch TV. I watch YouTube, but, obviously strolling along, I saw this Venezuelan briefing. So I, out of interest, clicked on it. And lo and behold, they bombed Venezuela. Of course, you know about the story. Anyway, my bigger point is, I don't know if it was Trump that said it or it was the guy, Rubio, came up and spoke. He said, this president, when he tell you he's going to do something, he's going to do it. He said, mess around. He said, F around, and they found out. And I was like, wow. They truly said that. That's like street verbiage. So this presidency is unlike anyone we ever know. F around and find out. So that's kind of why I draw for that, because a lot of believers, we have those same sentiments, because Satan doesn't care about your proper words. They don't care about your dignity. Now, I'm not trying to encourage anybody to act and behave any old kind of way, but cutting through the chase, mess around and find out. I'm not that kind of believer. And I'm sure the narcissist found out the hard way. A lot of us are not that kind of believer. You get an empath that truly has his hand in God's hand, you got a problem. You got a problem that you didn't even know you had. See, one thing about an empath, we give, but when God enlightens us, we can give it back to you on a paper plate with no fork or no spoon. That means you're behind. And it's not even always a physical. It's most often, it's rarely a physical. An empath's presence, you better go read about some of the people of God that had God on their mind. They would challenge their adversaries. You call out to your God and we'll call out to ours. And whoever speaks by fire. You remember the 55 prophets. Nothing has changed, guys. Empaths, and they're silent. Can make about real vocal moves, and the narcissist will feel them. Because they do things to people that didn't do anything to them. But this video is probably more or less to focus on how we, in our isolations, don't find joy. We don't find a lot of interest in some of the things that we were interested in times past. And this is why, because you're going through a stage of individuation. It's the collapse of the persona. You're going through an ego death. So there's a lot of other things within that I would encourage you guys to go listen to Carl Jung on this. I will leave the title of that said video in the description of this video. So that being said, guys, bless.